Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the week before Christmas. I'm not sure how everybody else is feeling, but for me, the plan to tread softly and gently towards the year end must have been shelved while I wasn't looking, because it looks to me like the Christmas rush has trumped yet again, and the overriding feeling just right now is very busy. My name is Julie Rosenberg and I'm the Executive Officer of the Australian International Development Network, now known as AIDN. And I want to welcome you to the final webinar for 2020. It's a fitting finale, I think, because it's with a big shout out to the magic done in partnership. I want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of country throughout, and give a big thanks for their continuing care for and connection to land, sea and community. We at AIDN respect their elders past, present and emerging. AIDN is very, very lucky to have Anna Demant join on its team. Anna is the Foundation Manager at Planet Wheeler with an expertise in South Asia and human rights. She sits on the board of directors of Inclusive International Development, and in her spare time, of which she has none, she convenes a group of philanthropists who seek to support asylum seekers and refugees. Her perspective is always wise, optimistic, and her passion is palpable. Anna is going to lead our webinar today and discuss the two amazing partnerships that were acknowledged in the Philanthropy Australia Awards for 2020. Anna also led the selection committee for AIDN and ACFID, so she is well placed to tease out all the tricks of the trades, how you actually make a partnership work and come up with an effective partnership. So Anna, can I hand over to you?
Yeah, thanks Julie, that was a really kind introduction. And yes, before I start, I'm talking to you from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. It's a pleasure to be here. This is a really lovely webinar to end the year on, particularly in light of what's happening around the world in the context of the COVID pandemic. The impacts, particularly the economic impacts, are wide-reaching, far-reaching, and we're seeing all sorts of effects which will play out over the coming years. So that's why it's really great to be able to showcase partnerships like this, particularly with their really strong focus on local involvement, because that's absolutely the key to successful international development. I'd like to start by congratulating Accenture Australia and Good Return for being the 2020 recipients of the International Philanthropy Award. The award essentially was about recognising and celebrating a unique relationship between a funder and a donor organisation, between donors and doers. And what made this relationship really stand out was the fact that it was really credible. There was an obvious link between Accenture and their goals and programming that Good Return was seeking to achieve. And in the country context, it just made absolute sense. They just pipped at the post another outstanding relationship, which is between the Nepal Australia Friendship Association, and we've got Rod Setterland, the president from that organisation, on the call today, and their work with the Pasang Agricultural Cooperative in Nepal, supported by the English Family Foundation, which also had at its core a sense of deep credibility. So today, what I'll do now is I'll just introduce our speakers briefly, and then we'll dive into some questions, particularly looking at the relationships and how they developed. So we've got today on our call Shane Nichols, who's the CEO of Good Returns. Shane's got over 20 years experience in microfinance and enterprise development across the Asia Pacific, and has worked in both China and Mongolia previous to his current role, looking at rural and economic development. And he's also on the board of ACVID, the Australian Council for International Development. We've got Julie Long on the call today too. She's leading up corporate citizenship at Accenture. She's got deep expertise in the information technology and service industry, and is also highly skilled in corporate social responsibility. And I think the flavour of her engagement in this relationship is really evident, and her genuine engagement is really clear. So Rod, who I mentioned before, has been described by his own children as obsessed with the country of Nepal and its people. He's worked with the Nepal Australia Friendship Association for over 20 years and was awarded an Order of Australia for that work. He's deeply passionate about the work, but also very strategic and intelligent about the way he goes about it. He's supported ably by Belinda Morrissey, who perhaps needs no introduction to many of the people on this call. She's the CEO at English Family Foundation, with a particular interest in supporting transformative change through the development of social entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. She's also a highly effective board member at ActionAid Australia, where she really shows by doing how a board member should operate, and is an excellent contributor in that context. So what we'll be doing now is having a chat with our guests, and just really teasing out partnership and what a good partnership can look like. I'd like to start by speaking to Accenture and Good Returns to just ask you, can you tell us a little bit, Shane, if you could start by telling us a little bit about the relationship and what you achieved together, if you could sum it all up. I know it's been a few years.
Thanks, Anna, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to everybody today, together with Accenture, who have been partnering with Good Return for more than 10 years now, and Julie will speak a bit more to the background of the partnership. But essentially, Good Return operates in countries around Asia Pacific that experience severe poverty, and our program has been focused, the partnership with Accenture, on activities in Cambodia and Nepal, and prior to that in the Philippines. And the particular area that we work with them on is helping people to access responsible finance, and then to be able to use that finance well. So providing training in financial education and small business skills. And with that, they're able to earn more money. They're also able to manage their resources better. And it can have a really big impact on their lives. So, in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, we're directly addressing goal number 1, which is no poverty, and goal number 5, gender equality, because we do have a focus on women in our work, and goal 17, which is the partnerships for the goals. But, with increased income and better management of your money within your household, that can have flow-on effects in terms of nutrition, health, access to education, all of those different aspects. So it really can have far-reaching impacts for the families. So we'd been working with Accenture on delivering this program for a number of years. And as I said, a lot of it was focused on financial education out in rural villages. What we did a few years ago was, with Accenture, we really just looked at the changing landscape in the countries that we were operating in. And mobile phone was starting to penetrate some of the rural villages that we were operating in Nepal and Cambodia and the Philippines. And we were really waiting for a time when we got to a threshold, and I think it was when it got to about 30% of households in the villages that we were operating in, the poor villages that we were operating in, had access to a mobile phone, that we decided it was time to start to offer some of those services through digital technologies. And Accenture came being skilled in digital transformation and digital technology, were able to bring not only money, but their staff resources to the fore to help us tackle that problem, to design digital tools that we could use to reach people. So, and I mean, we're fortunate in this year with all the complications of COVID and the inability in many cases to offer face-to-face training, that we've been able to start to roll out this digital tool that they helped us build. So it's called the My Money Tracker, and it's based on a paper-based tool that we've been using for many years, which is a money tracker. And at the heart of good financial management is knowing where your money's coming from and where it's going to, and in particular being able to separate out household finances from your small business finances, and that way you can assess whether or not the small businesses and the various activities you may be running are profitable or not, and therefore what you should invest in. So we set Accenture the challenge of converting this paper-based tool that we had into a digital tool, and I mean, I'll talk a bit more about it through the conversation, but the engagement we've seen across Accenture has just been outstanding, not only from a financial perspective, but the way that they've engaged and brought their skills to bear to this partnership. So over the last 5 years, we've reached over 7,500 people through the face-to-face training, and over the coming years, we expect to reach tens of thousands of people through the digital training. So it's very exciting.
Could you just give us an example of a typical user? Who is this person? Is it a woman? Is it a man? Are they city, country? And what kind of businesses are they involved in?
So I'd say traditionally our typical user would be rural based. We do focus on women because women experience poverty to a greater extent than men. Also, we know that when women control the finances and have a large say in household financial decision making, that the benefits accrue to the family. So we do have a strong focus on women in our work, but not exclusively. We work with the whole family, and we work with men as well, and children. So they would be a family living in poverty. Often, if they're rural, they're usually involved in agriculture. They might be raising some animals. They might be growing some crops. Quite often, they'll have 3 or 4 different income sources to manage the vulnerabilities and the seasonalities of the different activities that they're involved in. So they might also be transporting or trading some goods, whether it's selling it from their home or transporting it to market, or transporting goods on behalf of other families in the community. They've got an average household size of 5 across the various places that we work. So there's usually dependent children, often there's elderly people in the family. And they're starting small businesses that they often run from home. So they tend to be micro businesses that will employ family members and give them a source of income that they can manage alongside their other financial flows that they've got in their household. With the My Money Tracker, we're aiming to reach that audience, but also working a little bit more with the urban poor as well, and urban micro business owners. And sometimes they'll have slightly different, so they might run a tailoring operation, or a beauty shop, or a hairdresser salon, or a whole range of different types of small businesses. So it is also broadening a little bit the base of people that we work with through this new tool. Still, we're targeting people living in poverty.
Julie, this is really inspirational stuff. What was the magic moment when you realised that this could be a great partnership for your organisation and joining with Good Returns?
Thanks, Anna, and thanks to everyone. I'm really pleased to be here today to talk about our partnership with Good Return. So as Shane mentioned, we did start our relationship some time ago, and had been working together really over the last 10 years. And as Shane mentioned, we really kind of had been, as being a technology company as well, we'd really been looking for that time where that sort of, mobile phone penetration was really starting to be more prevalent, and that we could really start to bring, more of our skills and really sort of help to bring digital tools into the organisation as a way both to help Good Return to scale, but also really able to help reach more people. So the programs that Good Return's been running are really incredible in terms of really skilling and equipping the women with those financial education skills, and which really goes across all aspects of their life, from their household, personal money management, and then obviously to enabling them to start those businesses and understand where the money's going and what's profitable as well. So really for us, it was around that time where we thought, well, we can really now start to bring more of our skills. And I mean, our Accenture's purpose is really around delivering on the promise of technology with human ingenuity. So we really wanted to bring our skills to the fore to really develop this tool so that it could be used easily by people, but also enabled that to be reached to more people within Cambodia.
I'm really interested in that initial testing phase, that iterative testing phase where your staff were engaged with the local partner and really working with the local people to see, is this fit for purpose? Could you give us a little insight into that, first Julie, and then Shane, if you've got further to add?
Yeah, sure. So, really, we really started out initially, obviously, talking with Good Return, but we quickly realised that the best thing that we could do was really ensure that our people really understood who were the users, what was their context, how did the app need to be designed, how would they use the app, and what would be most relevant. So we sent our team over there, and they really conducted extensive interviews with a lot of the potential users. And so just really sitting down with them, talking to them about how they use money, what are some of the challenges they face, and really sort of seeking to really make sure that we understood who the users were, what their requirements were, and then really being able to start that design process. And then obviously there was a number of different testing processes. So once we kind of developed a prototype, then there was we really needed to test that, and to really test that with the people that would use the app. And that was a very iterative process, and certainly required quite a bit of design and redesign, and obviously working really, really closely with Good Return and their team on the ground, and having them also be discussing that with the women and the families that would be using the app. So it's been a pretty extensive process over the last couple of years, and I have to say, and I think Shane can probably talk to this more, that the results from from recent interviews, etc., and feedback that we've had have been really positive in terms of the users, really saying how it's enabled them to track their money and help them to really understand who they owe money to, who owes money to them, and really get a good understanding of where they are with their financials.
Shane, did you have anything to add to that? I'm particularly always interested in those moments where you would have gone down one path if not for this technical expertise that Accenture could offer, and particularly those interactions with local users who might have, if you hadn't had that deep engagement, you would have gone down a completely different path. Were those moments?
Certainly. I think, first of all, when the two staff from Accenture came over to Cambodia, it was very refreshing to see their approach. They were, I think, it certainly wasn't just a job for them. They were deeply passionate. They couldn't help themselves but just get out there in the field. They wanted to spend as much time as possible out there talking to people. I got just this constant stream of photos and texts sent to me of just their travels around, and all the food they were eating, the people they were meeting. They were really immersed themselves in the culture, which was absolutely lovely to see and really refreshing. And when they came back, in fact, we got one of them, Steve Farkas, to present at our annual fundraising event and just talk about his experiences in Cambodia, because he was just so passionate. But not only that, they brought really deep technical skills. And I think for us, probably one of the key learnings was, when you're running like a financial education class, you've got a captive audience of 10 or 20 people sitting around, and you can design some materials, and like our money tracker tool, you design those tools, you iterate them based on feedback, but you've still got a captive audience. Whereas with an app, you're vulnerable to losing your user at any point in time. The second they get bored or strike a challenge, you've lost them. And so there was really a key learning for us, I think, in the design of I think not only digital tools, but all learning materials, that they need to be highly engaging at every point through the process, and you need to constantly test and iterate. And I think that was new to us, the number of iterations that we had to make and the amount of testing that we had to do, and user feedback. And the Accenture team took this process very seriously, and that user experience was a key skill set that they brought to the relationship. So that was a fantastic learning for us.
So reading between the lines of what you just said, it sounds like you almost had to gamify the app a bit and really add some bells and whistles to keep people engaged.
Well, also, we're dealing with people with a variety of different literacy levels, often very low literacy levels in their own language. And so everything has to be icon. We avoid the use of text, just a few words here and there, but no sentences. And keeping it very visual. That's right, very engaging. Throughout the whole interaction. Yeah, so it was a really fun project to work on.
And how was it for your local partner, and what did they learn from the engagement with Accenture? Because it's not just about the partnership between the two of you. There's also the beneficiaries and that local partner. Really interested to hear how that went.
Yeah, the local partners have really appreciated that they don't have access to those sorts of skill sets, either within their own organisation or within their networks or in country. And so to see an organisation come in and bring that highly sophisticated approach, but also delivered at a level that they can engage with and understand and interact with, that was a really great. We got a lot of good feedback from our partners on the learnings for them in that process, and yeah, they really appreciate it. And now they've got the ability to roll out a tool to their members. And look, a digital tool is not suitable for everybody. So many of all of our partners are still providing face-to-face training, but in those cases where they can complement that with a digital tool or substitute that with a digital tool, then they're really keen to do so.
Shane, we'll move over to your fellow panelists soon, but just in conclusion, what would you recommend for others seeking to go down this kind of path and to engage donors and doers engaging so collaboratively and deeply? What are your key takeaways?
I think for us, the relationship with Accenture has always been fantastic. In the early years, it was mostly financial, and that was, of course, really valuable. We rely on those sort of contributions. But I think it took us a little while to really, to get our head around the skill sets that Accenture offers, and to build a relationship and the trust and the engagement to a level where we're able to tap into a wide range of skills that they had. So they did things, they came in and facilitated a strategic planning workshop for us, and they helped us to develop our e-learning platform. And they've done a multitude of different things for us over the years. And it took us, we're probably slow starters in, identifying what those opportunities were. And now we make every opportunity count. But it took us probably a while. So perhaps my advice to others would be, regardless of the type of partner you're working with, get to know them, what they bring, and look to get the support across the range of areas that they bring. Because I guess the one other thing I want to mention is just the breadth of the support we get. So we've got, Accenture's managing director, Bob Easton, comes along to our events. He's personally engaged. Their foundation board engage with us every quarter and come along to events. We've got their global giving team that all know us, and they're always asking us interesting questions. We've got staff in their cloud services team and, other digital teams and that know us. And so we've got engagement across so many different parts of the organization. And that's, you know, and we get support in so many different ways from, you know, staff giving and, you know, corporate matching and volunteer time. So really getting to know the partner, I guess, and looking for every angle of engagement is really a key learning for us, and something I'd recommend to others. And can I also give a quick shout out to Belinda and English Family Foundation, who, while they're here in a different capacity, are also wonderful supporters of ours. So thank you.
Julie, did you have anything to add to that? It sounds like deep engagement at all levels in terms of your staff was really important for Good Returns. I imagine it brought so many benefits to you and to what you got out of the relationship as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. I mean, certainly from our perspective, you know, we're really focused, I guess, in terms of ensuring that the outcomes are achieved for Good Return and the people that they're seeking to support. But we also really want to provide that opportunity for our people to get involved in whatever way they can. So that was one of the things that we've really kind of tried to do, is to look at how can we share what we're doing with Good Return to all of our employees. We've run some webinars where we've invited people to come along so that people can learn more about it. We've seek to sort of identify, well, what are some of these volunteering opportunities where people might be able to provide support for half a day or a day or a whole range of things like that. But really for us, it's the benefit of being able to kind of share the story and provide different ways our people can get involved in terms of using their skills, or simply by just contributing from a workplace giving point of view, you know, each month, contributing some of their pay, you know, their pay, and really supporting some of the women as well. So providing that range of opportunities, I think, has been really important for us. And you know, that's really, really positive just from an employee experience, employee engagement perspective. So I would encourage, you know, funders and to look at what are the other ways that they can support, in addition, obviously, to that important financial support as well.
It's a good news story, that's for sure. And really interesting to hear how much more you can get from the relationship both ways if there's that deep engagement. I'm now going to hand over to Belinda and Rod from English Family Foundation and Nepal Australia Friendship Association. Rod, it doesn't slip off the tongue, but it is an amazing organisation. Could you tell us a little bit about the association and then lead into how you first met Belinda and the team?
Thanks, Anna. And that's why we call it NAFA, N-A-F-A, because it is a bit of a long name. So thanks again for the opportunity to talk this morning and to listen to others. Just a brief thing about the context then. There's a group of villages northwest of Kathmandu, up in it's called the hilly region towards the Tibetan border, from the Tamang ethnic group that NAFA has been working with for almost 20 years in a range of areas of education, health, electricity, infrastructure, and in 2013, the community itself established a cooperative, an agricultural cooperative called the Pasang Child Agricultural Cooperative, and a savings bank that was attached to that. And on their own initiative, following a big project that we funded and that they did with some funding from us, installing some micro hydro electricity. I think the confidence and the skills from that experience, they decided they could work collectively to improve their agriculture and develop their agriculture by diversifying their crops, improving their animal husbandry, improving their productivity, and trying to find new markets. That was the idea of the establishment of the cooperative. Then the earthquake struck in 2015, which is only about 20 kilometers to the west of this area, the epicenter was, and destroyed all their infrastructure, all the schools that we had helped build in the area, which were 4 at the time, and the health post and the agricultural infrastructure. And about a year after that, after we'd been raising funds to replace the schools and rebuild the schools and things, we got connected to the English Family Foundation. And it was in the context of the agriculture cooperative. And we have since then had a relationship that is first of all, reestablished the cooperative after the earthquake. NAFA did the physical infrastructure. The English Family Foundation funded another number of projects that improved access to training and seed funding for a number of income-producing initiatives. And recently, we've funded a project that is focused on growing the cooperative and trying to make it self-sustaining within 3 years. In terms of, I guess, from our point of view, what the relationship has done is a number of things. First of all, it has been a pooling of resources that have, built physical infrastructure, provided training, has strengthened local leadership, and kind of supported the local change agents that have helped grow the cooperative, and as well, seed funding for income producing new initiatives and that sort of thing. We've gotten out of also this goes with the relationship with the community, is the English Family Foundation is both challenged and affirmed our kind of efforts. They challenge us with suggesting the use of business plans, frameworks to assess, plan, and implement and evaluate proposals, and also just a focus on outcomes and what data should they collect at a local level that will say that we're on, they're going in the right direction and that they're achieving what they set out to. They've also been affirming. There is a shared interest, a shared, I guess, enthusiasm and confidence that we've built up over time, and the conversations and refunding of projects has kind of said, we're on the right path. And in some ways, in our organization, which is a very small, totally volunteer-run organization, their focus had been education, health, and economic development was a kind of a new area. There's a certain amount of risk inherent in that, and having some expertise in that area was affirming both to myself, but also to our committee, that we're maybe a little bit risk averse, at the time. They've also connected us with, for example, a market-based framework that, with some adaptation and some simplifying, I thought could be well used within the cooperative to provide a bit of a framework around this growth project that they've undertaken. And she's also a very practical thing, connected us with our international transfer agent of funds that has saved us a lot of money on foreign exchange and bank fees. I wish we had been connected before the earthquake, but it's saving us money now, and that we're grateful for. So that's kind of introduction to how our relationship was started and what it's meant to us.
Yeah, that issue of currency and the incredible savings that can be made if someone has a bit of a good relationship with the bank or more leverage with the bank, that's not to be understated. Belinda, it's an incredible project, and it speaks for itself, for sure, and it's really clear why Rhoda's been involved for so many years. Can you tell me about the first time that you heard about it, and what was the little spark that made you think this is something we could get more involved in?
Yeah, thanks, Anna. I appreciate that, and echo Rod's sentiments of gratitude, and thanks for having us here today. I'd just like to start by acknowledging that I'm joining you from Gadigal country and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So yeah, what was that little spark? So you mentioned before that we focus on the sort of growth and development of social businesses. And so that sort of, I guess, comes from the deep entrepreneurial background that Alan English, the founder of the foundation, brings to it, and the sentiments of the family. So one of the key factors that we always look for is this really strong self-determination, community-led initiatives that help the communities to diversify their income sources, so that we look at sort of how do you take the necessity village entrepreneur into a growth entrepreneur. So we did actually just receive an application from them through our online process, which does yield some really interesting areas. And Rod and Alan and Tessa both all live in Brisbane, so there was a little bit of a connection there as well. So really, it came down to the fact that Rod and Deb and his team really understood and knew the challenges that these villages were facing. It's one of the most disadvantaged areas in Nepal that other INGOs don't go to. So, you know, they're so involved in that community and have been for decades and really understand that. So that deep knowledge, I think, is really critical. It's also about how you have that systemic approach and understand the many challenges and complexities. And one of my all-time favorite quotes, which isn't from me, it's from a Singaporean social entrepreneur actually, is that change comes at the speed of trust. And so I think what that little spark for us was that we could see the deep trust within the community and NAFA, that they had built this over time. These issues do take time, but they had that really deep understanding around the villages and really beautiful bonds with them. So for us to be able to support that income generation is really what we are looking for, and understanding those barriers and challenges to income generation, which is some of the work we've done with Shane in Papua New Guinea to support them in Papua New Guinea. It was a really clear and close fit within our English Family Foundation focus.
Just practice. My mute is not as seamless as it could be. I think what you're talking about there is the credibility of the relationship, and the fact that you could see that first and foremost there was no harm being done, because that's certainly a question, isn't it, always with international development. The best laid paths are often the paths laid by good intentions that don't lead to the best places. And so could you talk a little bit about your due diligence process? Because yeah, the process of gaining trust, it's a slow and gradual one. And what kind of questions that you were engaged in, and Rod, how you managed that early relationship as well. So perhaps starting with you, Belinda, and then Rod talking about how it felt to be on the other end of that process.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Rod's question, Rod's response on that one, because I know that, and he knows every time he speaks to me, I've always got 1,000 questions from him because there's so much to learn. Look, I think it is difficult in the global context to do due diligence sometimes. Alan has done a site visit, so we've been out there, but certainly in the first instance, we didn't. So then we have to look at other components. We have to look at their track record and their leadership. You know, how are they supporting the leaders, and what's their approach? Is their approach to go in and you know, and really service that community and then leave, or is it a long-term approach? One of the key things that stood out for me in their application was the fact that after the earthquake, and this has been demonstrated consistently ever since, is that they sat down with 100 women and went, okay, what do you need? And it's just that simple aspect of asking what they need is so often a misstep. So often it's just, oh, okay, they need food, they need shelter, they need, let's all get all that organizing. But actually asking the community and then going, right, okay, what you need is this, we'll help you to achieve that. That speaks volume of the way that of NAFA relates to those communities and the way that they work. And so those sorts of triggers are the type of issues that we look for in that due diligence. And then we develop it over time. And I think, you know, we've consistently repeated funding or done different initiatives. And we're in as Rod mentioned, a 3-year sustainability type approach at the moment. But guess what? COVID has just completely upended everything. So, you know, we're in a really difficult phase globally. We're just, I think, beginning to start to see the impact of COVID in Nepal. So understanding that these things take time and having the flexibility and being a family foundation, we do have that flexibility. We can be nimble to their responses. It is really important to us.
And Rod, how did it feel to be on the other end of the barrage of Belinda's questions? Charmingly put, I imagine.
No, it's good. You know, I mean, that's what you know, it does challenge at times, and I learned too from that process, because sometimes I had the answer or a partial answer at least, and I just hadn't reported that well through our reporting system. But other times it opens up new questions that I've got to get back to our partners, you know, local partners, and explore with them, and hopefully, I'm sure they learn from that process as well. So the partnership, it really is kind of a three-way partnership, and it does need to be. What I like working with EFF is there is some flexibility there, because if you are going to go with community-driven ideas, of course there needs to be some that can change as things evolve and new ideas come up. But then they've also got to be realistic about the availability of resources and how much resources can be applied. But when there has been something really good come up, and it has happened in the case of the Cooperative, both NAFA and the EFF have been able to respond in a timely way. We haven't had a kind of a 6-month or a year thing where once a year we'll take applications or whatever. We will, if something comes up and the time is important to implement it, if we can find the funds, then we'll try to do it. And that's been really been able to do that well with them. We have got a kind of a business plan and reporting framework that Alan and Belinda both encouraged the use of, and I report on that usually after my visits. But this year was in the first time in 15 years I haven't been able to go there. Although I was there in January for a few weeks just before everything started to close down. Luckily, you know, with COVID. But so that now that the challenge that is to get that information, the same information, you know, by email, by phone calls, with my local partner in the village, whereas usually I could collect that information while I was visiting and then help, you know, write up the report with that local partner. Now I'm really relying on him, and hopefully he's learning enough from this process to be able to do that, because he won't just be, you know, it's not just us he'll have to satisfy with those sort of things. They have applied and were successful in obtaining their first government grant on an agricultural issue, and I'm sure the experience of applying for funds with us helped him, and even the confidence of applying for it, because they're, like, you know, in a government that's very controlled by elite high caste people, for an ethnic group to, you know, try to become more assertive and apply for funds takes a fair amount of courage and, you know, developing confidence to do that.
That's job done there, Belinda. It's always great when an organisation ends up accessing larger funds. So congratulations to both you, Rod, and Belinda, for this exceptional partnership. And it's testimony to to the worth of flexible funding, a flexible relationship, and yeah, a trusting relationship. And to echo Shane's words from before, it's very refreshing when there's that level of trust and genuine engagement. So Julie, we were moving to Q&A now. I'm not sure if I have access to the chat, but I imagine that people can register questions on chat. Julie, do you mind letting me know if I can see, if I have access to those?
You should have access to it, but we've got no questions.
No questions just yet, but people should feel free to.
Absolutely. People should fire in any questions that they've got. I mean, it's been a pretty comprehensive presentation from my perspective. 2 amazing products. And what I've taken away just from the discussion we've had today is that trust is essential in partnerships. And if we're going to deliver change, I particularly love your line, Belinda, that change comes at the speed of trust. And there's no doubt this year has knocked everyone for 6, and really trust has taken a back seat. So the more people can hear about partnerships that actually work and how you work them out, and that they might not all have been in a straight line, and sometimes there's a squiggly line, but the passion and devotion that you guys have shown to one, making the partnership, that's a start, and then you actually have to produce something from the partnership. And the My Money Tracker app and NAFA project are just inspiring. So I want to just say thanks, not so much a question. And now we've got some questions. Can you see them, Anna? Or
Yeah. So we've got a question from Ruth Lancaster. With both these partnerships, do you work to agreed partnership principles? So we touched on that a little with the due diligence process, which I imagine Rod and Belinda was about establishing guidelines and a memorandum of understanding, I assume, would have come out of that. I'll start with Shane and Julie. We'll hear from them on this question and then revert back to Shane and Belinda. Julie, did you within your organisation, have you had these kind of partnerships previously with organisations? Was there precedent for this kind of partnership, or was it starting from scratch in terms of?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So the answer to that is yes. We do have other really meaningful partnerships. We're a global organisation, so we do have lots of partnerships around the world. Also being a corporate, we do have quite sort of structured processes in terms of grant agreements and the sorts of things that we look for in relationships and with our partners as well. And we obviously go through that process with our partners, really having those sort of detailed discussions up front around, what would the project entail, what sort of reporting and things, are we looking for out of that, how frequently will we have those sort of formal, review processes, etc. Obviously with, those open sort of communication channels, etc. Through the duration of the relationship as well. But yeah, we certainly, we seek to have deep and meaningful relationships, and that's where, I think this has been a really good example of where we've really, certainly worked together over a period of time. Like it's been a significant period of time, and we've really sought to bring as many parts of our business to the relationship as we can, so that we can get involvement at a variety of levels, and really, help Good Return to really, expand their impact, and trusting that they really, they know their business best, and there's a lot that we, that that they know how to deliver it in the countries that they're working in.
Shane, did you have anything to add to that? I imagine it's very, again, you know, refreshing is the word that comes to mind. It's very refreshing when you have a funder on board who absolutely gets that you are the expert in this field.
Yeah, we greatly appreciate Accenture's approach in that regard. And I think one of the key sort of the foundations for the partnership is an open mind. So Accenture, you know, as Julie said, they've got, they're business-like in many ways. They've got, you know, targets and reporting frameworks and those sorts of things, but they have an open mind, and it means that we meet quarterly. We talk about progress and challenges and issues, and where we need to pivot, you know, we discuss that. And I think that's really a key aspect, and probably a learning from this whole experience, that partnerships evolve when you tackle challenges together. And that's quite different to a normal funder-fundee relationship where you might submit a proposal and off it goes, and that's sort of the relationship. I think when you build a partnership, it's quite different. You're tackling a problem together, and it becomes so much richer. The response becomes so much richer when you put your heads together and figure out a way to tackle it. And that's really been a founding principle of the relationship that we have with Accenture and Julie and the team there.
Because we have, we've got about 8 more minutes, so I'll return to Rod and Belinda to ask around these, the question around these partnership principles if we have time, but we did touch on it a little with the due diligence question. Rod, a question to you from an anonymous attendee, intriguing. What are your approaches to forming government partnerships? So you have got this funding from government. What's your experience in kind of leveraging these public funds and building sustainable frameworks with ministries in country? I know you're early days in terms of this funding, but I guess that's the end game for most NGOs, for better or worse, and wondering if you could expand a little on that.
Thanks for that question. I guess I would need to, the relationship there that's resulting in the money has come from between the cooperative and the local. They have a new constitution in Nepal, and there's a new level of government called the rural municipality, and they were able to obtain what we call a state grant. I guess they call it they have a different name for that, but so they applied to the rural municipality, who then applied to the state for this grant for the agricultural cooperative. We've encouraged them, of course, and as you say, it's important in other areas too. We fund three senior teachers that get the school to grade 10, and we've been encouraging them, and we've met with district level government officials to try to take over the salaries of those teachers, similar in health, and it's very challenging within their budgets, and I'm sure other factors come into it, political and cultural nature and everything as well. So to tell you the truth, we try to stay under the radar of the government. We got exposed to them after the earthquake because they coordinated the rebuild of infrastructure for the schools and everything. We had to engage with the government to get permission to do that and everything. But generally in Nepal, it costs money from an INGO point of view. If you actually need to pay to be kind of monitored through their social welfare council and bureaucracy, and so we've avoided that. So I guess so I haven't answered the question very well in terms of how we've engaged with the government over there. It's been done we're trying to encourage the locals to do it in the areas that they think there's a chance of, as the opportunities come up. And they have, this last year, they did receive an extra quota for a teacher salary, and that's after like many years of lobbying themselves. So I guess they're learning, and they're maybe getting better at it. I don't know. But it's a good question. I'm going to ask them when I next go there as to why do they think they've been successful in more recently than in the past. I'm hoping it's something to do with capacity building that maybe we have had a little bit to do with, but we'd like to be interested to hear it for their words.
Yeah, it's a really interesting area and a good question. And it gets to the number of another question from Jerry Marston that I'll direct to you, Belinda. How do you create an environment where partners understand that sometimes it's okay to fail, which is, you know, Rod wasn't talking about failure there, he was talking about the tricky and intricate nature of in-country context. Could you answer that question? How do you get to develop your relationship so it's okay for Rod to be completely candid with you and the local partner to be candid with you both?
Yeah, look, that's a great question. And I think that it speaks volumes of that, the depth of the relationship and the ability to sort of, going back to Julie's point, that to understand that NAFA and the Cooperative, Accenture, who's the head of the Cooperative, they know what's best, not us. So understanding sort of where we fit into this relationship is really important. But the ability to sort of be able to take a step back and if you can understand why something didn't work and understand all the unintended and intended consequences involved with that and understand how they're mitigating potentially against that happening again in the future, then failure is part of parcel of the learning. And if we don't learn, you know, one of the great things about the partnership with NAFA is that we both are learning constantly all the time. And if, you know, we're both sort of bringing different elements to that partnership. So I think the ability to learn from those mistakes, certainly if they were repeated, then we'd really have to call into account, like, what is actually going on. But the ability to learn is really important. And Accenture has taken on this role of responsibility within the community. So actually supporting him as a leader and the people around him they're not always going to succeed. You know, they're human. So, and they're facing incredible challenges. Like it's such a greater depth of challenges than what we are used to here in Australia. So taking all of that into account, I think it's really about understanding the reason behind those failures.
Anna, can I just add a couple of things to that? When Alan, you know, expressed interest in visiting the cooperative, and he did so a number of years ago, he actually made that point to Accenture. We had a question came up about a egg laying business that they cooperative got into, and they had stopped it, and he was wondering why, and so we met with Accenture, and it just happened, and we met with them, and he explained it, and Alan learned something from that as well, I think. And so one of the things I think is the testing of our assumptions. We make a lot of assumptions sometimes about why things may have happened the way they have, or why did, you know, but sometimes once you just ask questions and explore that, you will find that, oops, those assumptions weren't quite correct. But Alan was very clear from the start, which he told Accenture was, you know, if you do make mistakes, please be open and honest about that with Rod. Just basically what Belinda just said, and he kind of made that very explicit, and I think Accenture feels quite comfortable now that, you know, and there's others in our organization that, you know, have got pretty cranky at the community in other areas of where things haven't quite worked out the way they thought. Some of those are based on false assumptions too. And so, but I've always tried to have that relationship where test the assumptions first and then learn from it. And they'll soon know that they won't want to repeat and continue to make mistakes. They'll learn from it, and as long as they're not being blamed, well, you know, usually there's something good comes out of it.
Thanks for that, Rod. Julie, I'll switch to you. We did have a couple of questions. I was going to ask Shane and Julie, flipping right back to the beginning of their relationship with one another, and there was a question from Jeff Trance and Benjamin Scott around, Jeff was asking why you chose to support Good Return, Accenture, and why them and not others. And I think perhaps that question was answered around the idea that the time had come. You had the 30% saturation of the mobile phone market, and it seemed like it seems like it's a really good fit, but I can connect you after this. Benjamin had a question around the nature of volunteer and pro bono opportunities. So again, Benjamin Scott is interested in that, and we'll get back to him with some answers. But Julia, I'll hand over to you now to wrap up. And thanks to our panelists. It's been really interesting.
Yeah, been a fantastic discussion, and my takeaways from it anyway, we've heard about due diligence, we've heard about trust, and what is loud and clear in all of your relationships is respect. And, that would be, I think, at the heart of everything you're doing, being prepared to listen, being prepared to act. And I think it's a great lesson and a great reminder. We're just at the beginning of seeing the devastating impacts of COVID. I think they're going to play out for another couple of years, at least, minimum. We made such huge inroads, last 10, 15 years, pushing poverty, the reduction of poverty in a positive direction. And we're now hearing just diabolical predictions from the World Bank and others that, 100 million people are going to be thrown back over that poverty line. So this is the time that I would say we can't do much about that, but we can respond. And we do now need to respond. We need to stand up together and take a look and respond. And for sure, it's tricky, particularly when you're doing international development, because you can't touch and feel everything. But we have just got two amazing projects here, the My Tracker app and the NAFA co-op, that actually come with the AIDN stamp of approval. So if you're interested in doing something, and I kind of hope you are, then we'll have up on the website, we'll have a recording, because loads of people couldn't hear this today, and I think they will be interested to learn your lessons. But you can contact them through our website, and we'll have all the details, and we'll try and answer, because the questions just keep coming in. So we will maybe even do a follow-up on this next year. But the other thing you can do is support AIDN. We've got amazing support already from 3 visionary foundations who just said, go do something that might help. And we're trying to do that. But you can go onto the AIDN website and sign up. And up there will be links to both of these AIDN approved. And there's loads of other opportunities out there, but these are 2 great ones that if you want to do something, do that. But that's it. Thanks again, Anna, for facilitating a great discussion and generally just being on the team. And I hope you all have a fantastic rest of the day, and it's been inspiring. So loads of challenges, and you've shown us how you just keep persevering and tick them off one at a time. So thanks again. Thanks to the audience for participating in this busy time. Okay, cheers. Have a great holiday. Time for a rest. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah, thanks heaps.